The average Canadian throws away 37 kilograms of textiles each year. And 95% of these could be reused or repaired. Repairing is a great way to extend the life of our clothing and to reduce our environmental impact. Repairing clothing may seem overwhelming. That's why we're joined today by Candi Hauser, owner of Hauser Homestead. Candi is a small business owner who offers self-sustainability workshops. What are you going to show us today, Candi?
Well, today we're going to be sewing a button on a pair of pants, we're going to be repairing a hole in a t-shirt, and we are going to be putting a patch on these pants with a hole in them. But before we start, we need to go through our supplies. Now we're going to be doing this with no sewing machine, we're going to be hand sewing, all very easy stuff. So to start, we need thread. We want new thread, we don't want grandma's old thread. If you have anything on a wooden spool, don't use it.
So how come you don't want an older thread?
Well, so here's the thing. If I pull on this new thread, it's got some buoyancy to it. This thread, if I could get it off, it would snap.
Oh.
So you want it to be, you don't want a brittle thread or else there's not going to be any point to your repairs because as soon as you put it in the wash, it's going to
absolutely
come apart. So next we're going to want a tape measure.
And not your husband's old...
No, not a tape.
Yeah, right.
I call it tape measure. It's a seamstress's measure.
Right.
Or sewist measure. Seamstress, a little bit of old style word. We need a pair of scissors. Now these little scissors are my favorite. You can get them at the dollar store for, I think they're 3 in a pack for $1.50. You also, a thimble is always a good idea because if you're sewing, you tend to poke yourself in the finger. Clips are always good just to clip something together, and you can just use...
A lot of people probably don't think of that, really. Yeah,
and
absolutely.
And there are sewing clips, but I find that just binder clips work just as well as anything.
That's a great tip.
You want a seam ripper because you're going to make mistakes. We also have, obviously, our sewing needles and pins, and the pins are going to hold things like our patches together. They're going to... they're just going to hold things in place that we need to have.
Make it a little bit easier for you.
You usually want a pin cushion so you don't poke your fingers when you're looking for everything else in your sewing kit. These are my favorite ones. I put a little magnet in the bottom. They're actually little
that's a great
bottle
idea.
caps,
Yeah.
and they just have, it's a pom-pom in the middle, and you just put some fabric around it and glue it in.
Fun.
Yeah. So you always have some extra buttons on hand because that's what we kind of lose the most. And some people, I don't tend to use them, but an iron-on patch is always a good idea just in case you need something quickly done, you rip something quick, and you need to actually go. If you have any heat source, you can put that on. And obviously, our cutting scissors in case you have to cut some of your fabric. Maybe you got caught on something. Who knows? So that's kind of what we need in our little sewing kit. And you can use any kind of box. A shoe box works really well as you start collecting things and having extra pieces of fabric and stuff.
Old chocolate tin?
That's right. That's the one. The old cookie tin.
Exactly.
Trick everybody. Yeah. So that's kind of what we need. And now we can kind of start with our repairs. So I think we'll start with the button. I think that's the easiest one.
Absolutely.
So on here, this happens quite often because we like to think that we're a little skinnier than we actually are. And your
present
button,
company not included.
or if you're like me today, you just lose buttons randomly. So it's more likely that your pants buttons are going to just pop off. So to do this, when you're putting your thread on the needle, you're gonna get a pack of needles, and they'll have all kinds of different eyes on them. And you just find one that goes with kind of the thread you're using. And you kind of want a polyester thread. That's kind of getting a little bit more technical. If you find a new thread, get the new thread.
That's what's going to work, yeah.
And whatever eye the thread's going to go through, that's what you want to use. We kind of double it. I always double my thread, and that just gives you a little bit of stronger, and then you knot it at the end. So that just gives you a place where your thread will stop when you're starting your sewing project. We're going to find the place where the button was. There's usually going to be a little extra thread in there, and you can either cut that out or it'll just pull out.
Mm-hmm.
And then we are going to kind
Gives
of
you an idea of where it goes.
That's exactly right. We'll kind of find out where that button kind of goes, and then we're just going to put an initial needle in, and then we'll kind of tuck the button onto there. And so we'll thread that through, and then you want to go to the opposite side of the button if it's a 4 button. If you have something like a 2 button, like this one, you're just going to go
Back
through
and
the
forth.
back and forth.
Right.
If you have a single button, these ones are a little bit trickier, and you're going to have to go around in kind of a circle.
Sure.
So we're going to thread that through there, and then we're going to come up, once we've done the opposite side, we're going to try to come up through here. When you're looking at the back of this, you're just trying to kind of hit always the same type of area, and you'll find where your button is. It might take you a couple pokes, but eventually you'll find
get
it.
there. That's what the thimble's for.
That's right. And then you're going to place the thread through the opposite side again. And I would do this 2 to 3 times
Sure.
through each. I would go, and then I'd start at the first one again and go through. I'll go a
Just
little
to make sure
faster
that
now.
it's
just
tight
secure.
and it's gonna,
Yeah.
gonna keep it on there.
And I wouldn't worry unless it's something where you're going to see the back of it, and there's not very much out there where you're going to see the back of where your
Right.
button is. I wouldn't worry about what the back looks like and how far apart maybe your button,
Stitches,
your
yeah.
stitches and everything. This is a repair. It's not it's not.
Doesn't have to be professional
That's
looking.
right.
That's right.
When we're ready and we've gone through and we think that button's nice and secure on there, you'll be able to tell. You won't be able to turn it very well.
Mm-hmm.
We're gonna kind of thread it through the back. So you might find one of your stitches on the back, and you're gonna kind of thread under the stitches. You'll pull the thread a little bit through, and then you're just gonna knot it through the other way, right through your thread.
Great tip.
And you might do that twice, just to make sure. And when you're using a button like these, with just the single hole, you want to get that, you might even try to get that knot right into the hole.
Yeah.
Just so that button's not going to move. And that's something that you don't actually see when you get a manufactured thing, and that's why your buttons are falling off. So that's a button repair. We've got that all knotted now. We're gonna get our little fancy scissors here, and we're just gonna snip the back of that thread off, and that's it.
Perfect.
And your button's ready to go again. And maybe I can get my husband dressed a little nicer. All right. So next,
We have a tear in a t-shirt.
we have a tear in a t-shirt. And if anybody's like me, you don't like the labels. I don't know why they still do it, but the labels that go kind of on the
So
side of your
true.
shirt.
So itchy.
And I tend to tear those off. And then what happens when you tear off those labels is you get a big hole in your side of your shirt. So you're just going to bring the shirt, you're going to put it inside out. Or the part that you're going to sew inside out. I'm going to use a nice white thread here so you can see it nice and easy. And we're not going to do anything fancy. So a lot of people think, oh, I got to do this stitch that's on your... Well, let me tell you about this stitch. This one is done on a thing called a serger, and it has up to 5 needles on it, or 5 threads on it that are all doing the same thing at once and cutting the fabric all at once. You're not doing this by hand. You're not even doing this on a regular sewing machine.
Sure.
The next thing that we're going to do, we're just going to do kind of the same thing we did last time. We're going to rethread our needle with the same thing, with the same knot and everything, double it. And we're going to do something called a whip stitch. Whip stitch is it's a fancy word for going round and round and round and round. So we're going to end at our knot. And we're not going to be fancy about this. We don't need to have the stitches completely close together. Just close enough that you're going to secure that hole into place. Now, if we were having a hole in like a middle of the shirt and you wanted to do something like this, and maybe you don't care if the stitch is seen on the front, you might just go up and down, up and
Right.
down. And you can actually do a whip stitch for those as well. You just might find a little bit of a pull in your fabric. And depending on where the hole is, it might not matter. So we just keep going round and round. And I might go all the way up and I might go all the way down again.
Oh, okay.
Just in case I missed a spot. And I'm doing this quickly because this is what most people are gonna, they just want it fixed.
That's right.
And they don't care what the stitch looks like. They want, when it's right side out, they want it to look like they didn't
There's
tear
no
their
hole.
label out.
Yeah.
But we're going to make this nice, and if we're using new thread and we're using, you know, and we have a knot and everything in place and we're ending the stitch the right way, like with the right knotting and everything, this should not come out. Not anytime soon anyway. And sometimes you just need to do a repair to get you through until
Right, exactly.
you get to the next thing. Until you can maybe even take it to somebody who can fix it properly. But, you know, I have to wear this today, or I'm on a trip, I'm camping, I'm, you know, in a different country. I'm
fix.
like
Yeah.
yeah, I just need this to not look like I don't know how to take care of my clothes. So again, this is not fancy, and this is what everybody is going to look like. If I was going to take my time at this, they would be all
Sure.
perfect. We're going to do the same thing. We're going to pick a couple of stitches closer to where we ended, and we're going to go underneath them and do our knotting again. And we might do that a little bit further down once again. We wouldn't want to go down too far from where we ended because it would start cinching
Right.
the fabric together. So you can see that. I went a little too far, but that's okay. I can always go back and kind of go over that thread. So we've done that. We've knotted. I might, and just even for a little extra security there, I might even cut that a little longer and hand knot it, which is not the easiest thing to do. But that's why we did it with the needle
Right.
as well. But this might be my extra. I did it, make sure I did it. When we look at the other side of our thing, you can't really see. I have one thread that's showing there, and I might go back and fix that. But our hole's fixed.
Perfect.
Nothing's happening to it anytime soon. I can wear this shirt again.
Right.
And I can throw it through the wash and everything.
Yes.
Too. So next, I'm just gonna move a couple of these things out of the way. This one's I'd say the hardest one. And this is where we're gonna need our pins. Doing a patch. Now, actually, I'm gonna go back to the t-shirt for a second. If you have a t-shirt that isn't salvageable, or you don't want to salvage it, depending on where the hole, maybe you ripped it on the collar or something like that, you can make yourself a bag out of your t-shirt. And this is just another way to reuse some of your fabric, like rather than throwing it out. And you can, and I hand stitched this one a long time ago. So you're just gonna cut the bottom of your shirt off. You don't even have to cut the bottom of the shirt off. You sew across the bottom. You cut if your shirt had sleeves, you're gonna cut the sleeves off to where, exactly where your seam is on your shoulder and your, like, you know where the seam is here. And then you can stitch the top and the sides just to secure that so it doesn't rip anymore, depending on the fabric. If it's like a jean or anything, you might not want to do that, and you'll hit the nice, a really nice fray. And then you'll have a nice go-to bag. These are my favorite, actually, for like going shopping for clothes and everything like that.
Yeah, that's super fun.
And you can use like your favorite t-shirts, because I wasn't going to throw this away. I got this right in Dog River, Saskatchewan when I went to Corner Gas. So
right.
Why would I throw it out?
Awesome.
So now we'll get back to our patch. So these ones are a little bit harder. There's a couple of ways that you can do a patch. There's the iron-on ones, and I'm not a huge fan of them because they're usually not the right fabric for what you're doing. You can get denim ones, they're not the right color or style for what you're doing. But they are an easy fix where you can actually just iron them on, cut them to the size, iron them onto the spot, and then away you go.
Sure.
But I think the easier fix, and the one that's actually going to last a little bit longer, is sewing a patch in.
And a little funner too.
It's a little funner
yeah.
because you're going to put your own style to it. You might have an old, like this came from an old flannel shirt. You might have something else. Maybe you took a piece of the t-shirt and you're going to bring it back over here. Or you have another pair of old jeans sitting around. I personally, I don't care what happens to jeans. I will never throw a pair of jeans out, because even if they're beyond my use, I can use them in something else.
Right, of course.
So we see we have this hole here, and we're going to just take a look at, depends on what you like. So sometimes, obviously this is in style now, we might keep it like this. But if you don't want to, or you want to patch those holes, it's getting close to winter, you don't want holes in your knees right now because you're going to get cold, you'll want to fix this, and you just before you want it will have all those frays, you know how it's like on your knees it'll have all that kind of fraying. You might want to cut all that out first and kind of make a nice clean hole. To do that, you kind of want fabric scissors or very sharp scissors, and don't use your fabric scissors on anything else. That's like the sewist code.
Golden rule.
That's the golden rule. Like, people will hunt you if you have used your scissors for any other reason. Now, you can either put the patch, you can kind of measure it, and you can put it right over top, and we could sew it that way. Today we're going to put it underneath. So I'm just going to kind of measure that, just looking at it. I'm just going to make it a little bit smaller and I'm going to keep it square because I want to kind of go into a square when I'm sewing it on. And we're going to make it so it looks like a really nice cool stitch on it as well. So we're going to bring our clothing inside out, or inside out, I guess. And because it's on a pant leg, if you were doing this on a shirt or something, you wouldn't have to pay attention quite as much to make sure you don't want to sew the back to the front, and then it's not going to be any good. Then you might as well make it into a bag. We're going to take our pins, and we're just going to pin on each side here, if I can get a hold of it. It's hard when you only got one hand going. Thinking I'm all good and do things without looking, and then miss my spot every time. So we're going to pin each spot, and this is just holding that patch into place for us to sew it. And you could sew it here, but you can't see your hole now. So we're going to put that right side out again, so you can kind of see already how that's going to look on the pair of pants. We want to stitch it kind of around the hole, or you can stitch it in a square depending on what you're doing. Oops. We're going to start the same thing with the thread again, where we're going to double it, knot it at the bottom. I have a nice contrasting thread here to make it look really cute, and I don't know if my son's going to like it or not. We'll see. He gets very picky about his clothing. And we're going to start from the inside. We don't want to see that knot.
Of course.
And then we're going to bring it through. And this is just a basic back and forth stitch. So you're going to bring it through. You're going to go down a little bit further than where you started and bring it back down. Now this is the tricky part. When you bring it back up, you want to kind of try to hit right beside that where you just went down, so that you're not really leaving any kind of gap. So we're going to go up and down. Let's see how fast I can do this, until our patch is in place. And again, this doesn't have to be fancy, and it's my opinion, actually, when it comes to hand stitching things, if your go-to is to hand stitch, and for people who sew on a regular basis as well, the nice thing about a hand stitch is that it's not perfect, and it has its own character.
Yeah.
And it kind of can have its own kind of life.
Adds personality.
It adds personality, and you already got the hole here. You're already adding a patch. So why not have some personality in the stitch that you're adding to that as well?
Absolutely.
Like, you can go with your own color thread. This is where you can be creative and be outside the norm, because what are most people going to do? They're either going to leave the hole there, or they're going to
Go buy a new pair.
Of jeans. And I know we're all struggling a little bit right now, and buying a new, even from a cheap place, a new $40 or $50 pair of jeans is not really feasible all the time.
Right, absolutely.
And especially when you have kids, you can't go out and buy them jeans all the time, because you will send them out the first day, and the next day they'll come back and they will have a hole in their jeans.
That is very true.
But my son, because he's grown up with me, loves getting all these personal touches to his clothing. Because it just makes him a little bit different than everybody else in his class. And then he goes to class to say, look what my mom did to my clothes. Look at this.
Absolutely. I love that.
This is literally something anybody can do. To me, hand sewing takes no talent whatsoever. You just have to go up and down, and it's the same thing with same as the button. All we did was go up and down.
Right.
With that whip stitch, essentially we're going round and round. And this is what a sewing machine would do too. It just puts your stitches closer together and makes it a little bit more secure. But
not everybody has access
to a sewing machine, nor do they want to. But I think having a sewing kit on hand, you could have one, in my opinion, you have one at home that has all your stuff in it. And you should have one in your, like in your car or in your purse or in your backpack or something, so that you can, anything that happens,
you can
just fix it. Because even, you have a backpack and all of a sudden your strap will just come apart, or all of a sudden the zipper breaks or something, and it's just everything's hanging open, and you just need something quickly to just close it until you can get home.
Absolutely.
So there we go. At the end of this, we're going to go back. I'm not going to knot it yet because I can't see where I'm knotting it from. I'm going to put it very carefully because we have needles. We have pins in there that have very sharp ends. We're going to go back in here. We're going to find our last couple of stitches, and we're going to do the same thing with the knot that we did with the last two. And we're going to just do this kind of nice double knot thing again. And if you get this is me, I'm a loopy person.
That does happen.
That does happen, and that happens too. Then what I do is just cut that little excess, and then I just knot it.
So if that happens,
like that.
Not all is lost.
Not all is lost.
Yeah.
If you have a little bit of thread left, then you can still just knot it like this. Depending on the size of your patch, you might want to cut some of the excess off. I'm going to leave that for now on the inside, and we can see how that washes. So if I'm putting a piece of fabric on there that's new, and I don't know like how it's going to shrink or anything in the wash, I might not cut that off yet in case I put it in the wash, something goes wonky. Then I still have that little piece of extra fabric to fix it a little bit better maybe afterwards.
That's a great tip.
So we'll bring this right side out, and then we have our cute little
super cute
patch. Now, if you have a pair of jeans, I'm just gonna reach down here. If you have a pair of jeans that are not replaceable, and this, I don't know if this happens to you, but it happens to me, where you get the hole right on the thigh or on the butt or something, just because they don't make jeans especially for women, they don't make jeans that are conducive to friction.
Sure, yeah.
If you get this hole, you can put a patch here. I tend not to. You can cut these into shorts if they're seem like a length for shorts. Otherwise, you could cut this and you can make these jeans into something else. You can hand stitch it as well. So what I've done with a pair of old jeans today was make a bag out of the top of the jeans.
That's
so all
really
I did
fun.
was, it's the same as the t-shirt one. We just cut off the legs of the jeans, and we sewed the bottom of it, and then I just used the bottom half of the jeans to make a strap, and used an old some rings from an old purse to add the strap to
That's great.
the jeans. So there's always lots of things you can do with your clothes, even if they're beyond your personal use.
Sure, absolutely.
That's it.
Thanks, Candi. I can't wait to try these easy repairs at home. To learn more about textile repair, visit divertns.ca.